All right, friends. Good morning, and thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining this webinar on attracting and retaining younger members. We'll be exploring how we are in relationship with Gen Z and late millennials, and even some Gen Alpha who are starting to come up. I know all these terms are they're a little fluid. We're going to talk a little bit about who those folks are and what they can do. But really, what we hope from this is to learn how to be welcoming, to learn that some of our practices might need a little tweaking, and to help us all prepare for the group of folks who are coming up and coming in and learn some things about who they are and how they are. What we'll be covering today is how we look at different generations that are in the church right now, what they need from us, and how they engage. We're going to be going over some very big, broad generalizations, but in general, we'll try and give you that information so that you know what you're dealing with, and we'll talk about that specifically. Then we're going to spend a lot of time on what we need to know and what we already do know about younger generations and their experience in the church. And we're going to talk a little bit about what to do and things not to do when it comes to liturgy, design, how we present our giving, what we talk about, and how we talk about it. So we're going to give a couple of tips on that. There's lots of research that's gone into this slide deck, and in each slide that has research, I'm going to share with you where that comes from so you can take a look at that yourself and dig into that. There's a lot being talked about right now in lots of different, so the Episcopal Church, the Methodist Church, the Evangelical Association, lots of folks who are digging into the question of what do we do with Gen Z and Gen Alpha members. And so there's lots of good research out there. We should pay attention to it, and I'll try and share those links where they come up. All right, so let's talk about some of the generational differences and how they impact donor motivation. I want to just as a disclaimer up front, I'm going to be talking in really generalized terms, and this may not apply to you or the people you know who are in this age group. But in general, these are things that these generations encounter, how they experience, and things that we might be able to focus on. All of this comes out of the fact that as we are designing our approach to how our generosity programs run in congregations, that's how we share our time, talent, and treasure, and how we are grateful for God's abundance in community. We want to take a look at how those messages uh, feel to different generations, how they're experienced and expressed, and see what we can do. That's not to say that we need to have five different stewardship campaigns to cover every person who's in our congregation, but it is to say that there are different ways that we can message and expect that messaging to land with certain generations, and that those are some things that we can know going into how we design campaigns and how we have the conversation about generosity and sharing our resources. Let's start with our mature generation. These are folks who are in we sometimes call them the greatest generation, the silent generation. They're born before 1945, and they are the bedrock of a lot of our families and a lot of our churches. Um, and they are leaving our congregations as well. They're moving into assisted living. They're moving into God's greater glory. And so we are seeing less of them in church, but they have a strong influence in church and in our families. They have come up in church in a time when institutional support, trust in the institution, was a value, was something that they learned early on. They began their relationship with church, usually very young in life. They saw it as an institution worthy of support. It's been with them in many cases throughout their lives and their milestones. And so they trust the institution. They're both great consumers of and providers of pastoral care. That's to say that We need to reach out to them when they're not able to be in church and visit them when they're in the hospital or when they're shut in at home and remind them that they're still a part of the congregation. Though we are many, we are one body because we share the one bread. And also, they provide great pastoral care because of their life experience, because of their wisdom. They're often the people in our congregation who comfort others or who are there to show us the way and how to care for each other. And so we want to make sure that we honor that relationship that they have with us and those skills and wisdom that they have in pastoral care. They want the church to be there for them and future generations because the church has been there for them and their children and their grandchildren. They want to make sure that that goes on. And so this is the generation that absolutely needs to be engaged in your planned giving ministry. If you have not yet talked to folks about what will happen with their estate when they're no longer able to enjoy it or manage it, this is the time to have those conversations. It's not about asking them to dismantle their estate or not take care of their heirs or their inheritances, but it is to say that they've had a lifelong relationship with the church and that maybe there are some ways that they can continue to share their gifts with the church or endow their pledge in perpetuity. That's one of the things that many of our older members want to make sure that they can do when they're no longer able to make their annual gift to the church, make ensure that there's a way for that giving to continue. If you haven't approached them, now is the time. And I'll say the saddest phone calls I get are from clergy who say, I didn't get to talk with this person before they died or before they moved into assisted living, and their kids have taken over their finances, and we don't have a relationship with them anymore. They would have wanted to have made a gift, but no one asked. And this is the thing. If we don't ask people about this, then they don't get the opportunity to do it. So please make certain that you're talking about planned giving with this generation. They're probably also great at capital gifts as well. And if you're having a capital campaign, they have appreciated assets. They have people who manage them. They have a required minimum distribution from their retirement accounts. Those can all be used to make very generous gifts to capital campaigns. And again, that is building on their love of the institution and wanting the church to be there for following generations. They can also teach us about their own giving history. And so I want to make certain that we are asking them for their stories, not just their gifts, but tell us the story of your relationship with church. Why have you supported it for all these years? If you've made a planned gift, tell us why you wanted to include the church in your estate giving, because that helps us teach the next generations. Again, this generation embodies so much wisdom. Let's make certain that we have a way to accept that and pass it on to other generations. The folks in our baby boomer group, born between 46 and 64, um, so their parents and grandparents experienced the institution on a more trusting level. We see one layer of skepticism come in with our baby boomers who might want to take a look at the books or understand where is my money going and why are you asking for it in this way and what are you doing with the gifts that I give? That's okay. That's evidence of transparent and accountable leadership. We want to be able to have answers for them about how we spend and invest and save and share their gifts with the world. So if they ask questions, that's a sign of engagement. This is a good thing. Make sure that we have good answers for them. Um, this generation, they have incredible appreciated assets in real estate, in retirement assets, in appreciated stock. Make certain that you are talking with them about planned giving and especially ways that they can avoid capital gains taxes and not pass along burdens to their children and grandchildren, and how to make great gifts. So have an experience so that they can talk with a financial advisor if they don't have one, that you can introduce the idea. You're not financial advisors yourselves, you're not tax experts, but introduce the idea about how they can make gifts that sustain the church and provide them with a living income. All these kinds of tools that are at our disposal in planned giving that make appreciated gifts really able to be used for congregations. So please be talking with these folks about planned giving. If you don't have a planned giving program, please talk to me about some tools that TENS has, or go to the Episcopal Church Foundation, ecf.org is a great starting place to go and talk about, learn about planned giving and how to start a ministry in your church, or talk to people about planned giving. So please make sure that you're able to do that. I want to also mention that our baby boomers are the wealthiest generation ever to have lived. They are sitting on an incredible amount, especially when it comes to real estate. And we are already seeing that great transfer of wealth into the next generations. And so we can be there to help them make decisions about their giving to the church. Here's what we know. Their schools, the symphony, nature organizations, arts organizations throughout the community, they are asking your same members for planned gifts. And so if you aren't, because you haven't started that ministry yet, or you're timid about how to begin that conversation, know that other people are. And once they make those decisions and sign those contracts, those gifts are off the table for you. So please make certain that you are doing this not just for now, but for the future of your congregation. Let's talk a little bit about our Gen X folks. That's my generation. We call ourselves the lost generation, or the small sandwiched generation. There aren't many of us, but we are around. We're born between 65 and 76. And you'll see that we're at the highest earning point in our careers, likely. We're in our 50s now, or starting to think about retirement. And so we're at that place where we're able to be very generous, hopefully, in our annual gifts, where we're thinking about capital gifts. We have appreciated assets and stock and things like that that we could give. And we're already beginning to think about our estates, because our children, we might have grandchildren, and so we want to make sure that we're protected and that they're protected. We are also about to inherit, and are starting to inherit, $40 trillion in the next 15 years from our baby boomer and greatest generation parents and grandparents. This is something really important to know, because that great transfer of wealth is happening. And so talking to this group about ways that they can invest in the church and help those gifts come to the church are beautiful ways that we can keep that giving relationship solid. So please be talking about that with your Gen X members. We are less trusting of the institution even than our parents and grandparents were. We've seen the scandals that happen in corporate and political and church lives. Those have happened in our news consumption era, and we've seen how the cracks in that system work. So we might be skeptical about what you're doing and might have lots of questions. You might have to earn our trust a little bit, and that's okay. If you have answers to our questions, we're usually good to go with that. You will see us interested in volunteering and moving into those roles that were occupied by our parents and grandparents, staffing the thrift store or the altar guild, or being a part of the church leadership, We are ready to take on that mantle if it is given to us. So make way for members of Gen X and of millennials and Gen Z. Make certain that there's a path for them to come into volunteering in your congregation and your ministries that are inside and your ministries that are outside. Our millennials are starting families now. They are in their prime earning years. They are in their careers. They are they are active in the world, and they should be active in your church. They are they're no longer the young ones. They're now the ones who are raising families in our churches, and this is a beautiful thing for millennials to be able to step into this. They have a very generous disposition. Our millennials have shown over and over again that they donate to nonprofits. And if you give them a good reason to make the church one of their donation interests, you will have very generous gifts from the folks in this. They've been raised up to be very generous with their time and their talent and their treasure, but they're going to have questions. They want to know, what results are you getting? You're doing these ministries. What is it change? Is it moving the needle? Is it helping people? They're going to have some questions about that. So make sure that we have answers. More than we give away food, you should say we feed 1,200 families a year, or we provide this kind of nutrition, or this is the impact that it has in our community. They want to see a little bit more about impact. This is really important because this is a trend that we'll see in this generation and younger. They want to know not just where their money's going, but why it's a good investment. Why do you want my donation, and what are you going to do with it? And how is it going to change the people in the community I live in? And how is it going to work? National institutions, large regional institutions, so the national church, the diocesan body might be might sort of be enigmatic to our millennials. They're very interested in local organizations and grassroots organizations. Your congregation is the center of that. Maybe they don't understand yet a deanery or a diocese or the Episcopal Church at large. And that's okay. Their center, their nexus is where they come every week, where they raise their kids, where they spend their time, where they encounter God. And so that's they see life as more local and grassroots. This is also deeply built into our millennial generation. Think globally, act locally. That bumper sticker applied to this generation. And so that's what they're doing. They're looking at their local church as the place to do this work. Our Gen Z folks are also no longer the youngest members in our church. They are in college or just out of college. They are starting to come into church in greater numbers. We're going to see what Gen Z numbers look like in the next slides. By 20 years old, 30% of this generation have already made a donation to a nonprofit. That's a startlingly beautiful statistic. At 20 years old, I was not making gifts to nonprofits. And so this generation is largely because digital giving on their phone, it's very easy. They get a text message asking them for $5. They make a $5 donation. They're done. And they have that relationship with giving that's really quick and easy. 97% of this generation have made an online gift for a charitable purpose. That's pretty cool. So they're very fluent in this technology. Not a surprise. They were born with a tablet in their hand. They understand this technology and it works on them. This is good for us to remember that QR codes and digital giving and things like that that might be anathema to our older generations are native to our younger generations. And so a QR code in your bulletin might freak some of our members out, and to a young member will be like, welcome home. This is made for me. So we need to think about that and how we relate our electronic giving and our opportunity to give to our youngest members. They want to see a difference in the world. They've been raised as idealists. This is a beautiful thing. And they want their church to be that. If they're going to engage in church, they want to know that church is doing something in the community aside from following Christ and loving God. They want to see their neighbors supported. They want to see the church engaged in outreach and ministry and work that they believe in that shares their values. And so they're going to ask those questions. Environmentalism is very important to this generation. The economic crisis is very important to this generation. And so let's take a look at that. We're going to talk a little bit later about pledging versus giving and how that influences, especially this generation. But keep in mind that your pledge campaign and the word pledge might not be a way that these folks engage with your fundraising. They might start to look at different kinds of recurring gifts, and we need to be okay with that. We'll talk a lot more about that in a minute. Gen Z, like any generation, can't isn't a monolith. They don't act all the same, right? Each of us are distinct individuals, but we can see some trends that come out, especially in our Gen Z folks. Among those who attend, Gen Z is leading in frequency. Leading in frequency. Keep that in mind. That says that they're showing up in church more often than our millennial and our Gen X and our boomers. They're there so 2 services a month. Our Gen Z folks are there. And that's saying this is across all Christian religions, focusing on mainline Protestant denominations. But when we look at this says our Gen Z folks aren't out the door like we thought they were going to be. They aren't leaving church like we thought they would be. They're in church. Even though overall affiliation declines almost 50% of them, 45% identify as Christian, 44% claim no religious affiliation. This isn't a surprise to us, but that number has stabilized since the millennials coined the phrase NONE, nuns, the nun generation, right? No religious affiliation. That number has started to stabilize, and Gen Z is saying, no, we do affiliate. And the fact that 45% or more of them are in church and saying they come to church and saying that they believe is a big step forward. Let's pay attention to that because what it says is that they are hungry for what church has. They want to be in church. If we give them something, if we offer them something, they will take us up on it. So let's look at those numbers. And this comes from the Giving USA report. It's published in July of each year. And so we don't have the 2025 numbers yet. They'll come out in July of this year. These are the 2024 numbers that came out in July of last year. And last year, 50% of Gen Z said they attended church every week or almost every week. That tracks almost with that 45% who are saying in 2026 that they attend at least 2 services a week, right? So, but look at that. They are the largest generation of folks in church. If this isn't your church, and it's not likely that many of our Episcopal churches are seeing their pews more filled with Gen Z than with other generations, then we need to start asking some of the questions that we're going to ask later in this presentation about how welcoming are we and what are we doing to make space for them. Uh, let's also take a look at the column on the right here. Virtual church is still important. It's not just after the pandemic. If you still are investing in that AV service and thinking nobody is really coming or it's just a few people, That matters to some people and to those people. So don't stop that. Keep recruiting volunteers, keep live streaming your Sunday services because across generations, we see people are still taking advantage of it, even years after the pandemic. This is now a thing that we're going to be doing in church for the foreseeable future. So let's embrace it. Don't shut that program down. When it comes to how likely each generation is in supporting the church with their gifts of time, talent, and treasure, in 2024, this is what those numbers looked like. So again, we see pretty incredible growth in our Gen Z folks. 29% of them in 2024 said that they would increase their likelihood of giving in church. That doesn't mean overall amount. That means increasing the number of gifts or the way they give or the number of people giving, right? So Gen Z doesn't have as much money as Gen X. We understand that. So their gifts might be smaller, but there are more of them. Uh, a lot of them said they were staying the same. Only a few of them said they were giving less. And so that tracks throughout all the generations where Gen Z is kind of performing really well there. They're increasing their giving. Now, that's also because even more of them each year are coming into their giving relationships. And so we would expect growth in that number. But let's celebrate this. They're increasing their giving and increasing their likelihood to give. So let's start to take a look at some things we can do to make certain that we are ready to welcome late millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha as they approach our red doors and think about their relationship with the church. We're going to talk in the next slides about how we engage the wider community. That's how we do our work, our ministry in the greater world, how we think about volunteers and volunteer opportunities, how we expect to raise our money and the kinds of programs we're doing and the kinds of campaigns we're running. And we're going to talk about discipleship, how we create patterns and how we see this as a part of our journey. Results are a really important step in motivating our younger members to give them real results that they can see. So again, this is to say that like when you get that annual report from a nonprofit that you might support, and it shows you numbers and stories. So if you're looking at saving the whales, right? We saved this many whales, and here are some tender stories that talk about that. And here's some action that we're doing in the legislature. Here's how many bills we sponsored and how they got passed or didn't get passed. You see numbers and stories. Our churches need to do that with our ministries as well. How many people are coming into your thrift store and why? Ask some questions, even if they're little anecdotes or things that someone at the register is gathering some information. Ask folks why they came in and what they're looking for and why. When you are giving food away, what are you providing for them? If you have any way to understand from members or from people who participate in your food bank what that box of food means for their family or for their relationship with food security or whatever you can gather, or talk about how many pounds of trash did you take out of the landfill because of your excellent recycling and composting programs, or show real results, numbers and stories, testimonials backed up by data. This combination that we see from our nonprofit brothers and sisters are ways that we can help our own congregation feel like they're a part of it and understand the impact of ministry. Impact is really important in motivating younger members in how they share their time, talent, and treasure. We need to talk about our preaching. Um, Complicated and beautiful theology is wonderful, and I love to. Sometimes I even preach sermons that are a little too theological. See, I used a qualifier there. Very theological in basis, but if it doesn't relate to reality in some way, if it doesn't engage the gospel in modern thinking, then we're missing an opportunity to make the scripture come alive and preach sermons that are honest and engaging in the world that we live in now. We don't all live back in the first century. We have to think about how we encourage and engage the world that we live in right now. And that means dealing honestly with the questions of science and climate science that are in our headlines. It doesn't mean preaching from the headlines. It means that people are listening to the news and watching and reading. And so we should have some affiliation with it, some acknowledgement that this is what people are getting. And then they come into church with complex questions and they want to know how their faith relates to what they're hearing. So have honest conversations about health and wellness, um, and who we are as a society, what values we hold. Um, Preach relationship values that are in line with their culture, reality, not morality. How are your people living? That's not to say that we don't have norms or expectations on how people should live. We do have doctrine. We do have a point of view. Make sure that they are gospel focused, justice focused, and help people live their honest lives as whole human beings. This is what the Episcopal Church stands for. This is what we stand for. This is really important to our members. When we're talking about and with younger members, we have to engage the mental health crisis that's happening post-pandemic with our young generations. 39% of Gen Z feels frequently uncertain about the future. That's a big number. And they're coming into church with that anxiety, that question about future, who I am, what am I doing, what's going to happen to me. Um, and they're looking to church to help with that. That's not to say that we are therapists, but it is to say that our story has some resonance in how people are motivated and moved. And so let's make certain that we don't ignore the fact that people are coming in with some really heavy stuff on their shoulders. Young people who have faith report fewer struggles because they have a system that they can rely on, a way of dealing with uncertainty and questions, right? The Christian hope is a powerful tool. It's something that Jesus preached not to be a panacea or an opiate to the masses, as Marx might have said, but as a real gift to help people focus on what's important and not be caught in the struggle. This is Paul's epistles, right? Don't worry so much about what's going on. Worry about how you're engaging it and what's the eye on the prize. I'm throwing out a lot of bumper stickers, but keep those in mind because that mental health relationship with our young people is really important. Anxiety, loneliness, depression, they are real. We need to engage it without shame, without naming or blaming our young people, without shaming them or stigmatizing them, but do understand that they are carrying a lot and that we've put a lot on them. And systematically, through healthcare and government access, we've taken away resources that they might have relied on in other times to help them. And so this is a reality that people step into in our church. Let's also acknowledge, along with anxiety, that there's an economic anxiety right now, especially with young people who are carrying student loans and other debt, who are facing a really uncertain job market, and who are wondering, um, now, for the first time, we have fewer college graduates that are employable than high school graduates. This is a real shift, in our economy and our society and how we're looking at things. So kids are coming out, young people are coming out of college with debt, but with fewer job prospects than they might have had in other generations. Home prices are surging. It costs so much to live. And here in California, I drove by the gas station yesterday, and the price of a gallon of gas in San Francisco is $6.29 a gallon. And that is crazy. And this is what the economic reality right now is for our young people. I have the money to be able to pump 629 into my car. Not everybody does. And that makes them make choices between gas and food and medicine and education and bill paying. That's a horrible thing to put on people. So when we ask people to make a gift, it is sacrificial giving. We need to understand that they are making a gift out of love for us, whatever that is, and that they are acknowledging that that gift means something to them. They want that gift to do something more about why they want to see impact with that giving because it means something to them. They are taking away from debt they could be paying down or other things that, that might not make logical financial sense, but it is making sense based on where they are with their community and how they want us to do it. Now, church cannot be predatory, right? This is why we have campaigns that are about transformation, not transaction. That we don't say things like "give till it hurts" or things like that in our campaigns. We want people to make whole and healthy and honest gifts that make sense for their budget and their household and their family and their future. And we need to acknowledge that giving for our young people is a big deal because it isn't, they don't have a whole lot of money just hanging out in the system. So young people are making their money in different ways than I might have made when I came out of college and had job opportunities. I moved into a full-time job within a couple of months of graduating, for which I feel very grateful and fortunate. And that is not the case for many of our college grads right now. They're coming out and they are working in Lyft or Uber or DoorDash, or they are working other kinds of gig economy jobs, or they're working very part-time jobs, 3 and 4 part-time jobs to make things together. And they're living with debt. And so the whole idea of pledging might be anathema to a Gen Z or a Gen Alpha member, right? Because how can you predict next year's income when you don't have a steady paycheck? When you're relying on weekly, how much you can drive in an Uber, or how many people are ordering delivery food, or whatever people are, however they're making their money, let alone seasonal employment or other kinds of employment that are out there. So we might need to take a look at our our pledge campaigns and make them generosity campaigns, make them giving campaigns, call them different things, and understand that some of the paperwork that we've always put into our fundraising programs might not be applicable to our younger generations. They might see them as debt contracts. In fact, this comes from a story that I have of speaking with a young woman once about why she made generous gifts to her church but refused to sign a pledge form. And she looked right at me and said, "I don't want to be in debt to my church." And even the conversation of this isn't a debt, this is a promise, and this is how we make our budgets and we think about things like this didn't resonate with her. To her, it felt like when she signed on a line, she was taking out another loan and she didn't want to do that. This is an important shift and that we should honor that and not dismiss it. So pledge campaigns, we might need to start thinking differently about it, which means paperwork is different. It also means that our back end systems are different. We need to help our treasurers and our bookkeepers look for patterns in people's giving that they might not have had to have done otherwise. If somebody's making the same gift every year and they're doing it in checks rather than in pledges, or they're giving the money from their bank account or online or however they're doing it, and we can note that pattern, it becomes as reliable and predictable as a pledge form, and we can count it as anticipated for next year's budget. Maybe even have a conversation. Do you plan on continuing to give at that level without asking them to sign a piece of paper? This is really important for us who rely on pledge forms to create budgets, to anticipate next year's income. We do need to start looking at patterns in different ways in our bookkeeping software, in our understanding of relationships. And let's just understand and acknowledge that it is inherent privilege that you can predict next year's income, right? Not everyone can do that, especially if they aren't working in a system that provides that kind of stability. And so let's make certain that we're on the right side of justice on that and make gift giving feel synchronous with the other parts of their lives that are focused on justice and wholeness. Similarly, let's talk about AI because they're talking about AI and they are interacting with AI, and AI is here. It's not going away, it's only going to become bigger. And people are using it for spiritual advice. They're asking the AI chatbot on their phone about decisions that they should make, about feelings that they have, and it's giving them information. Whether we would trust that or not, whether I would trust that or not, or you, is between you and your AI, I suppose. But young people are 1 in 3 adults now say they are trusting spiritual advice from their phone, from their AI chatbot. What does that say about us in church and pastors and preaching, right? So let's make certain that we at least acknowledge that it's out there. We can't run away from it. Uh, if people are turning to it, why are they turning to it? Let's learn about it. And what are AI chatbots offering that we don't? If you've ever done this, and it's might be an interesting experiment someday to open up Chat GPT on your phone or your laptop and start asking it deep questions and seeing what it comes up with, you might find that it gives very comforting answers, not so much challenging. You have to train it to challenge you if you want AI to challenge your thinking. And it doesn't do that naturally. It wants to please you. That's what it was created by engineers to do. That's not necessarily spiritual advice. That's sometimes just validation, which can feel like advice if you're not attuned to what it means to be getting and receiving advice. That's what people are getting from AI. And churches can offer a different approach, right? Validation in your beliefs and challenge to your assumptions and guidance that comes from long tradition and from wisdom and from shared experience. Let's take a look at what AI is doing and not dismiss it because it's not going away, and not just belittle it because it's big and getting bigger, but understand what its limits are and why people are going to it. Please, please don't ever write a sermon from AI and preach it. It's a great research tool. You want to find a Greek word study on a particular peculiarity of one of Paul's epistles, AI is a great tool to do that, and it will give you all the research. But don't ask it to write your sermon, or it will sound like a whole bunch of bumper stickers. It's an interesting idea one day to ask it to create a sermon out of a particular passage from your lectionary and see what it says so you understand why this is never a good idea. So pay attention to AI. It's out there. And our young people, they're running to it because it's available, because it's new, because it offers something really comforting. And church needs to be something comforting in its own way, not in the AI way. Let's talk a little bit about church. The Methodists have done a great job at looking at church architecture and asking people of younger generations to react to it and tell us what feels like church. So let's take a look at some of the studies that they've done and what they've learned and how they want to share that. In general, younger people prefer more traditional looking places. This isn't to say everybody, but in general, this is a survey and it looks at general patterns and smaller sized places, not big cavernous spaces. So if you have one of those churches that was built for size and for scale, but you don't have a congregation that fits it, start closing those back pews and pushing people forward, or even removing seating and putting in your coffee area at the back of the church, or find some ways to have the architecture help you rather than create spaces that aren't welcoming. And let's take a look in the next slide at the actual study itself. So the study said, ask millennials specifically, which of these four altars looks most appealing to you? That was the question. And so you see like 37% of folks kind of pick the altar that looks pretty darn traditional. Some stone, some carvings, some stained glass. Definitely forward focused. It's got some candles, a sanctuary lamp, things that are very traditional looking. And some of these other spaces that look a little bit less traditional, more modern, they scored lower. Again, this is about appealing. So, what makes church feel like church to you? Here's what a whole bunch of millennials answered and how they answered it. And I think this is important. It's important because we often think young people aren't coming because our churches are too antiquated, because they don't want to participate in something old and stuffy. Well, choirs and organs and altars and stained glass and stone, they do appeal to people and they do show something different from the community center or the auditorium or the school assembly place that they know, right? Church can look like church, and let's use it to our advantage, because what we have in the church are churches. We have churches that look like churches. So embrace that. Don't run away from it and make it sing for you. Technology, like AI, is also increasingly a part of our churches. And so if you've got screens, if you do live streaming, if you do social media, you've got to be good at it, because young people are native to this. In fact, you should ask your young folks, your Gen Z and your Gen Alpha, to run your social media ministry, to manage the screens in your worship space, to do this work because they know how to do it. They know how to do the program on the laptop. They know how to use their phones. They know how to create a short video that's scalable and shareable from your long sermon. They'll do that for you if you ask them to. Uh, get good at technology. Um, don't publish, a lot of our churches do a live stream and that's what goes on their YouTube. You're like, so I missed Sunday service and I have to watch an hour and 15 minutes, which also includes sort of like people shuffling around and people coming in and the choir warming up, which might be things that I missed, but I'm just trying to consume this. I missed church. I want to hear the sermon or see people, right? So shorts are better than longs when it comes to videos. You might have that whole long video so someone can participate in the whole thing, but then break it up into shorts. Here's the sermon. Here's the anthem from the choir. Here's, people gathering and laughing. Whatever you want to share, encourage folks to chop up the services a little bit so they become shareable. Hey, the sermon was really great, but you don't have to watch an hour and a half of content to get to it. you can just watch the sermon. So think about how we share our services and ask Gen Z to help you. Retention is really important. This is where we begin talking about discipleship, where we talk about recurring giving, where we talk about helping people, making certain they want to come back next week. It's that invite, welcome, and connect. If you're a part of that ministry in the Episcopal Church, they can teach you so much about what makes a welcoming space, how we become invitational, and helping people to become consistent in their attendance, in their giving, in their volunteering, because all of that retention work helps us form community and helps us grow good Christians and form them theologically. Akin to this is volunteerism. It pulls on our hearts in a way when we can give our time and our bodies and our work effort and our skills to something in church. So make certain that your church has ways for people to volunteer. That sounds silly. Of course, there are ways for people to volunteer, but make them known and make certain that people know they are welcome. It's not just the usual suspects. It's not just the one person who does that really well. You need to invite other people into it because volunteerism creates that retention, helps discipleship, pulls on the heartstrings. When you're doing external ministries, outward facing ministries like food pantries or tutoring or environmental cleanups or whatever you're doing that's out in the community, make certain you advertise those volunteer opportunities outside of your church as well. So your Facebook page, if your community or town has a bulletin board, put it up there. If it has a Facebook page, a Nextdoor page, those kinds of things that small towns or communities do, neighborhoods, to advertise. Let people know you're looking for volunteers for your food program. It's not just for your members to volunteer to do that. It's for the community as well. Why? Because this is the side door entrance for church. Many folks who don't want to walk through your front doors, who might be intimidated, might start to come and show up on your Saturday food bank and do that for a few weeks and learn that there are some cool people doing some great ministry that shares their values. And then they might start to come to church, but they won't start there. They'll start with your volunteer opportunities. That means we have to have some volunteer opportunities to offer them. So make certain that newcomers in your neighborhood know that you do things in the neighborhood, for their neighbors, so that they can participate in that life-changing giving work. Discipleship, creating disciples, forming our members, isn't just about learning the Bible and the stories or deepening faith. It's also about our stewardship, and not stewardship that's just campaign driven, fundraising driven, but stewardship is a journey. It takes the abundance of creation and our gratitude for it and turns it into generosity, generosity of relationships, of resources, and our responses to that. So offer people a journey like you offer them a journey through Sunday school into adult ed and through the Bible and through the church year. Stewardship is also a journey that we get better at and better at the more we practice it. And the more we understand that stewardship is about sharing and not just about giving and being asked to give, but being asked to share, it's a very different relationship. So let's work on that discipleship. Um, Margaret, I see you've got to go. Thanks for being here. We'll see you another time. Make questions normative. Questions are really important because this generation, our younger generations, they ask those questions. They want to know what the truth is. They aren't just coming in ready to take what you have and and walk away with it without asking some questions. So make certain that they know that questions are welcome, that this is a community that understands that you can come in with questions, that doesn't mean that you're not faithful. We ask questions all the time. We should be able to engage. And we've just all heard the Thomas Doubt reading last Sunday, right? So let's remember that it's okay to doubt and to give Jesus an opportunity to prove uh, what the gospel is and who we are as Christians, right? So when people ask questions and we have answers, we've made connection. Younger generations are boldly asking questions. Let's let them do that. Let's pay attention to the fact that our younger members are used to diversity in a way that some of our older members aren't. Millennials and Gen Z are the most racially diverse generations. 43% of them are not white, and they're used to going to school, to workplaces, to social gatherings, to engaging in communities that are of mixed ethnicities, not all the same. So this is important when they come into church and they only see one type of people and not a group, not a diverse spectrum, then we're having a disconnect right there with society, right? So we need to raise up leaders who are not white, raise up leaders who are unexpected or who are underrepresented, and make certain that they know that there's a path for them and a place for them and gifts that they have to share. Seek, recruit, and hire for diversity in gender, identity, and ability. And then people will see themselves in your staff, in your leaders, in your volunteers, in who's being raised up. This is a really important piece for this generation. When they just see white folks and don't see the diversity that they're used to, they will have questions about their authenticity. Optimism is also really important, right? If you open a newspaper or you take a look at, listen to headlines or watch them, as many people do on YouTube or other places, everything is going the wrong way, sliding off the rails, no matter what your opinion is of the economy or the state of the world, you're unhappy with it right now. And so that's pessimism and skepticism that is at every level of our engagement right now with the news and the world. Churches are places where we can turn that around, not in ignoring what's going on, but by focusing on the New Jerusalem, on the hope that we are building, on the way that we're trying to seek, serve, heal, feed, love, visit our neighbors. That's the work we've been called to do, and that is inherently hopeful and hope-filled. Help people understand that it's not just about corruption and scandal in the world, that church has people and relationships with institutions that are solid, that can be optimistic, that can work for good. Similarly, politics are very important. You can't escape them. But we're we are cautioned against partisan politics, of course. Issues-based politics are really important because they get to the local, they get to where we're at. I love when churches participate in local initiatives, even ballot initiatives for things like schools and housing and parks. That's really important stuff to talk about. Not who you vote for or why, but what are the issues that matter to us. And increasingly, local politics are way more important to us than what happens in Washington. Washington is far away, especially if you're here in San Francisco, which is literally a peninsula hanging off into the ocean, as far away as we can get from Washington as we've been trying to. It's distant. What matters is local. So talk about what's happening locally. Invite local civic leaders into your congregation to do town halls and to have conversations. Talk about the initiatives that make a difference to your neighbors, not to people distant, which isn't to say that we shouldn't engage our justice on big national issues or on foreign policy. We have opinions, we vote, we understand that role, but where we can see the most impact and the most influence is on our local systems. So also have a relationship with your city government, your county supervisors, with your state representatives. They influence things too, and they can often make a big difference in your community. Focus on those relationships and the issues that matter to the people who live near you. You will bring millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha into those conversations and let them see that the church has values that we stand for, that matter to us, and that we're willing to talk about. I often think it's great. I mean, I realize that we are overtaxed in churches in terms of how many things we're doing and how many volunteers we have. But if you can send folks to your local school board meetings every once in a while and your local city council meetings, even just to sit and observe and then and come back and say, this is what's being talked about in our schools. Here's what's being talked about in the city government or in the budget process. These are ways that your members can then say, we want to make a difference here. We want to engage with this. So stay involved in your local politics. These relationships are good ones to have. We all have a website. We probably all have a Facebook page. How interactive are they? So we're not even on Web 2.0 anymore. We're now on Web 3.0, where we are creating content. We are meant not just to have social media, but influence, right? The influence has come in through TikTok, and we're meant to try and change the conversation with what we post. So make certain that if you have an Instagram feed, it's not just pictures of your church, it's pictures of your church in action, doing something, making a difference. It's not just, if you're doing YouTube shorts, make sure that it's dynamic, that it's teaching something, that it's showing something. Dialogue, questions, meaningful interaction, and a chance for people to feed back to you. Yeah, there are going to be some wonky comments, and you're going to maybe have to filter or delete them from people who are just anti-church or anti-religion or have some other mental health thing going on. But if you can sort through that and find the way to have real dialogue online with people who are asking legitimate questions and wanting real feedback and conversation, this is a really transparent, beautiful thing to do. Has a lot of drawbacks, I get it, and it can be a time suck. But again, why you might want to have a millennial or a Gen Z managing your social media, because they're really good at this. Their thumbs can do a lot more than my thumbs can do. So ask them to participate in your ministry that way. I want to end by talking about donor-centric fundraising, that our campaigns will reach more people the more ways that we have to offer people to share their gifts. Yes, pledge and plate is the way we've done it forever, and that will not go away. But we have to have an online giving platform. If you don't have some kind of tool for people to make a gift from your website, you're missing out on some people who will only give that way. Likewise, um, you have to have a mobile way, some ability for people to use their phone to come into church and make a gift. If I were to come to one of your churches this week, I would love that. It would be great, but you wouldn't get much from me in the plate if that's my only opportunity to make a gift. So I don't carry a lot of cash. I use my debit card for things. I use my phone to make payments. When I take cash out of the ATM, which is rare, um, I spend it on dumb things. In fact, the money that's currently in my wallet is money my parents gave me at Christmas to pay me back for something, cash that they gave me, and it's just been sitting there. I don't spend it. So, anyway, it's not going to be in our wallets to give. It's on our phones. So make sure that there's a way, a little mobile app or a QR code or a link that people can use. Similarly, offer all the different ways that banks make it available for people to make their gift recurring, like those bill pay options, like ACH transfers, like that recurring giving tab on maybe your giving platform if you have one, like Tithely or Vanco or Realm or any of those that uh, offer integrated giving. Slide that toggle over to make it a recurring gift, and then it comes every week, whether they're in church or not, whether they're on vacation or not, whether they're here with you or not. Make certain you are reminding your members that they can use their required minimum distribution to make a qualified charitable distribution right from their retirement account into your church. It comes as a check from Fidelity or Schwab or whoever manages your retirement account. And that money is great. It goes right from their account. It avoids some taxes. There are good ways to do it. So make certain that people know they can give directly from retirement assets or other things. If you can accept appreciated stocks, securities, things like that, let people know that that's a way that they can pay their pledge or they make an annual gift to the church. And if you don't have a brokerage to be able to clear that gift and accept that stock, ask your diocese to do it for you and pass the money back on to you because they have that way. They have that model and method. So someone somewhere can do that for you, your diocese, if you don't have your own brokerage account. This is called donor-centric fundraising, and what it means is that we meet our members where they are in the way they want to give, when they want to give it, in the method that they want to use. So the more ways we have available to them, the easier it is for them to make a gift, and therefore the easier it is for us to raise money in our accounts. We have a couple of great webinars that you can look at in our webinar library on giving platforms and their costs, their pros, their cons. So take a look at those if you need more information. I want to finish up by telling you that every year TENS creates a pledge campaign that you can download and run and use. We give it to you in Word and in PDF so you can adapt it if you want to, or you can just print it and run it or email it, however you do your giving. And that's free. It comes as a member from your member diocese. You just put in the password and you can download this year's theme, which is Plenty Good Room. And it reminds us that there's always room in God's kingdom, at God's table, for more people, for more ideas, for you. And so that's our theme for giving this year. We also have 10 themes from previous years that you could use and cycle through and take a look at. You get art and logos and reflections and pledge cards and all kinds of things. So take a look at that. And it's free for you. It's easy to use and it's ready to download. We do it in English and in Spanish so that for multilingual congregations, they can take advantage of this too. Phew, that was a lot. And I'm going to stop talking, take a drink of water. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pull us back into our room and ask you what questions you might have about how to engage younger members on anything that we've talked about today and see what questions you might have. I see a message from Ray. Does the Greater Church have a step-by-step processing for creating a live YouTube feed? I don't know of a particular how-to. on that. So let me research that and see if I can't send you something. Um, but here's a little AI trick. If you Google, how do I create a live YouTube feed exactly, your AI, Google will create that step by step for you. It's a little thing that Google, which now uses what they call, I can't remember what their AI tool is called. Anyway, they will create it for you, and generally those are useful. But let me do some research and see if there's a step by step for how you do a live feed in Facebook and on YouTube. It's a great tool if you want to do it. What other questions about engaging millennials and Gen Z and Gen Alpha might you have, or anything that we've talked about today? You're all talked out already. That's fine. It's a beautiful Saturday morning and folks might have other things to do, but I just want to make sure, since we have a few more minutes, technically on this call, that any questions that are lingering get answered. And so if not, I will close this in a second and I will send you everything that I said I would, the slide deck, the video, and that'll come into your inbox either later today or probably on Monday. Thank you, Richard. Yes, it's Gemini. Google uses Gemini. And that is what will create a step-by-step tool for you. I will share the links to the resources that were referenced. And that'll be in the email that I send out. I will have a resources link, both with live links and general ideas to look at. Thanks, Paul. All right, friends. Well, I release you to your Saturdays. I hope that you have a really great day and a joyful rest of Eastertide. Thank you for being here. Um, we will next be gathered in May. Let me confirm the date. May 16th. We're going to be talking about how to do year-round stewardship implementation. And that's not to say that we're asking for money all the time, 24/7, 365, but it's saying how can we create opportunities to acknowledge our gifts and our gratitude year-round. So come for that year-round stewardship on May 16th, 9 a.m. Pacific on this very Zoom link. So we'll see you then. Thank you. Have a good day.